I remember in 2003 when the US, the UK, and Australia attacked Iraq for the purpose of overthrowing Saddam Hussein. There was a large wave of anti-French sentiment in the U.S. I'm not sure if it took place in the U.K. It may have. I don't know. But French fries, i.e., British and Australians might call them chips, were renamed as Liberty fries. French dressing was renamed as something I don't really remember, French salad dressing. It was generally seen that the French were obstructing a legitimate war, a legitimate disciplining of a nasty third world tyrant. I'm not interested in the politics of this. I don't think that politics ever really solves anything. But what interests me is the sense that because the French opposed the war in Iraq, they were actually bad. Their culture stunk, and anything French actually is pretty much inferior to anything non-French. Now, I'm that rarest of English Canadians in that I actually admire everything French. I think that the French actually have something that we don't have. They have an appreciation of life that we success neurotics of the English-speaking world don't have, at least to the extent that they do. Now, I know that plenty of people will disagree with this. Plenty of people who actually understand the French will say that they've got their own neuroses, their own problems, that sort of thing. But it's just that, from my personal perspective, the French way of looking at the world suits me. I love the visuality of French culture. I love their capacity to sort of put the practical and the philosophical in life in two completely separate compartments. I like the fact that they are actually quite good as practical and as philosophical. In the English-speaking world, I find we're very practical, we're very good at accomplishing things, but when it comes to actually the philosophical side, we're not, I won't say that we're bad, but we're just not interested. Whereas to the French, that's the lifeblood. That's what makes life worth living. Even though a French person might be might operate an electron microscope in a hospital, but what really moves him is when he goes to his local cafe and has a conversation about the meaning of life with one of the people that he sits with every day. I'm not saying that this doesn't take place in the English-speaking world. Of course it does. But I think that in France, it's sort of, or in the French world, and this applies even to French Canadians, it's sort of, it's given pride of place. It's not an afterthought. You go out and you do your necessary work in the world in order to enjoy a meal, enjoy an evening with your wife or girlfriend or boyfriend, or as the case may be. That's the central thing, whereas in the English-speaking world, the work, the accomplishment, the doing in and of itself is the goal. We have a saying here in Canada, the English see life as a matter of doing. You go out, you accomplish things, you do things, you rack up accomplishments. This even comes out when people travel. You don't go and visit Paris, you do Paris. You don't go and visit Mexico City, you do Mexico City. Whereas to the French, it's all about being. It's all about your perception of the world around you. Now, this is not an easy thing to actually explain. And I think that it's actually one of those sort of cultural divides that are pretty much irreconcilable. The English and the French actually are very, very different races of people. And I think that the French way of doing things in the long term is probably the better one. I know that sounds pretty arrogant, perhaps, or self-dismissive, or whatever. The French seem to have struck, to my mind at least, that good balance between the practical and the philosophical. The English, or the Northern Europeans in general, and perhaps this is the Irishman in me speaking here, tend to be far too practical. They don't appreciate poetry. They don't appreciate music, philosophy, to the extent that the French do. I'm not saying that the English don't appreciate these things at all. Of course they do. But I would say that that on balance, the French actually lean more towards the other side. I'm not, of course, saying that that English society is inferior to French society. I don't believe that the slightest. I think that, by and large, the history of the English-speaking peoples has been good for humanity, in spite of certain indications to the contrary, being English, or the impact of the English-speaking peoples on this world has been very good. But rather, what I like to say is that the French make a very good counterbalance to us. The English are the sun, the French are the moon, the English are male, the French are female. I don't think that's actually accurate either. But I will say that French culture is equally valid to ours, and I hope, if anything, that this newfound self-confidence that the French seem to have gotten in the last 5 years continues. There's nothing wrong with being English, but in any event, vive la France quand même. Thank you. Merci.